Invisible threads. The first time Nora Adad noticed something was wrong was when Julian didn't introduce her at the Vantage magazine party. She stood slightly behind him, champagne flute clutched in hand, as he energetically described his new position as creative director to a circle of fashion industry insiders. "You must bring your partner to our summer retreat," said the editor, her eyes briefly flicking to Nora. Julian smiled with practiced charm. "I'll check my calendar later." In the taxi home, Nora watched raindrops race down the window. "You could have introduced me," she said quietly. Julian scrolled through his phone. "You wouldn't have enjoyed that conversation anyway. It was all industry talk." "I work in textiles too, Julian. Just older ones." He sighed. "Museum conservation isn't exactly cutting-edge fashion, babe." Nora turned back to the window. After 3 years together, she recognized the subtle shifts in their relationship. As Julian climbed fashion's ladder, she seemed to fade into the background of his life, comfortable, unassuming presence he increasingly took for granted. At 32, Nora spent her days in the museum's conservation lab, meticulously restoring centuries-old fabrics. She loved the delicate, patient work, finding beauty in what others might overlook. Her colleagues respected her precision and historical knowledge. But outside the museum, her expertise rarely impressed. Their apartment told the story of their diverging paths. Julian's sleek portfolio cases and fashion magazines dominated the living room, while Nora's textile books and conservation tools remained neatly tucked away in her small home workspace. Even her wardrobe had become a source of tension. "Don't you have something more ... statement?" Julian asked one evening, as they prepared for dinner with his new clients. Nora glanced down at her midnight blue dress. "What's wrong with this?" "Nothing's wrong. It's just very ... you." His voice carried the slightest edge of disappointment. The dinner proved illuminating. Julian introduced her briefly as my girlfriend, Nora, before launching into animated conversation with the client's wife about Fashion Week. Nora attempted to join when the topic turned to sustainable fabrics, but Julian smoothly redirected the conversation. On the walk home, snowflakes dusted her hair as Julian recounted his successful evening. Nora listened, wondering when she had become invisible to him. The following week, Nora received an email that changed everything on offer. To lead conservation on a newly discovered collection of 18th century Ottoman textiles. It would mean 6 months abroad, a significant career advancement, and time away from Julian. When she shared the news, his reaction stunned her. "This is actually perfect timing," Julian said, setting down his coffee cup. "I've been thinking about us lately." The apartment suddenly felt too quiet, too still. "We've been growing in different directions," he continued. "You're comfortable with your museum work, and I'm moving into circles where appearance and connections matter. I need someone who enhances my brand, not someone who... not someone who... What?" Nora's voice was barely audible. Julian sighed. "Sure. Too understated, Nora. You don't make an impression. I need someone who fits where I'm headed." The words cut deeper than she expected. Not because they were shocking, but because she had known this moment was coming, had felt it approaching. In every overlooked introduction, every small criticism of her appearance. "I see," she said, surprised by her steady voice. 2 weeks later, Nora stood in her emptied apartment. Most furniture had been Julian's, leaving conspicuous empty spaces. She traced her fingers along the wall where their photos had hung. Now, just faint rectangles on the paint. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "Flight still on for tomorrow?" Nora typed back yes before sliding the phone into her pocket. Istanbul awaited with its ancient textiles and patterns. Away from Julian's world of glossy surfaces and fleeting impressions, she picked up her suitcase, took one last look around, and closed the door behind her. The unraveling Istanbul greeted Nora with a symphony of sensations, the call of muezzins echoing across the city, scent of spices wafting through narrow streets, and the breathtaking textiles that now consumed her professional life. The Ottoman collection exceeded all expectations, featuring silk brocades with gold thread and embroideries so fine They appeared painted rather than stitched. Her temporary office at the Istanbul Museum of Textile Arts overlooked the Bosphorus, where ferries cut white trails across blue waters. 6 months stretched before her like an open canvas, far from Julian's dismissive gaze. Director Ayla Karaman introduced Nora to her team on the first day. Ms. Haddad comes with exceptional recommendations. Her work on Safavid textiles is particularly impressive. The acknowledgement warmed her. When was the last time Julian had spoken of her work with such respect? 3 weeks into her stay, Nora's phone lit up with a notification. Julian had posted photos with a woman named Vanessa Winterza, model with a substantial social media following. They posed at a rooftop party, his arm possessively around her waist. The caption read, "Elevating with the right partner makes all the difference." #PowerCouple. Nora set down her phone, surprised to feel more indignation than heartbreak. The message was clear. Vanessa was everything Nora wasn't: visibly glamorous, socially connected, a perfect accessory to his ambition. That evening, standing on her small balcony watching the sunset paint Istanbul gold, Nora realized she felt lighter. The relationship had been unraveling long before it ended. "You look contemplative," came a voice from the neighboring balcony. Nora turned to see her neighbor for the first time, a Japanese-American man about her age, with thoughtful eyes and an unassuming presence. "Just processing some life changes," she replied. "Ah, the Istanbul effect. This city has a way of clarifying things." He extended his hand across the narrow gap between balconies. "Theo Nakamura, Nora Haddad. The textile conservator? I heard the museum was excited about your arrival." Nora raised an eyebrow. "How would you know that?" "I'm funding part of the Ottoman textile restoration, but I prefer to stay in the background." Over the following weeks, Nora discovered Theo was something of an enigma. Despite his wealth, he had created a revolutionary digital security system that major banks worldwide now used. He lived modestly and spoke about art with genuine passion. Their balcony conversations became a nightly ritual, discussing everything from Byzantine mosaics to modern digital art. Unlike Julian, who constantly interrupted her, Theo listened intently when Nora explained the historical significance of a particular weaving technique or the challenges of preserving gold-wrapped thread. "You see beauty in what others overlook," he observed one evening as she described the hidden patterns in a faded carpet fragment. 4 months into her Istanbul assignment, Aloda received an unexpected email. The Metropolitan Museum in New York wanted her to lead their textile conservation department upon her return, a prestigious position that would establish her as an authority in her field. That same day, she saw another social media post from Julian. He and Vanessa posed at the fashion awards, but something seemed off about his smile. The comments below buzzed with industry gossip. His latest collection had received mixed reviews, and rumors suggested his position might be less secure than he projected. "Good news?" Theo asked that evening, noticing her thoughtful expression. "A job offer in New York," she replied. "Significant step up. They're recognizing what I saw immediately. You have exceptional insight." His genuine admiration touched something within her that had long been neglected. As her Istanbul assignment neared completion, Nora realized her transformation had been subtle but profound. She still dressed with the same understated elegance, still spoke quietly and thoughtfully, but now carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew her worth. Her final week in Istanbul, Theo invited her to dinner at a small restaurant overlooking the sea. Under hanging lanterns, he made an unexpected proposal. "I'm expanding the Foundation's conservation initiatives," he explained. "We need someone to oversee textile preservation projects worldwide. The position would be based in New York, but with significant travel. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. Your expertise paired with the Foundation's resources could revolutionize textile conservation accessibility." Nora studied him thoughtfully. "Why me specifically?" "Because you understand that true value isn't always obvious at first glance." His eyes held hers. "Some things reveal their worth slowly to those patient enough to look closely." As they walked along the waterfront afterward, Nora found herself at a crossroads, the prestigious museum position or Theo's more innovative proposal. Both represented futures she couldn't have imagined 6 months ago. When Julian's rejection had made her feel invisible, her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "Heard about your Met offer? Maybe we should catch up when you're back in New York?" Looked out at the Bosphorus. Then at Theo, who waited patiently nearby, never pressing or demanding. She deleted Julian's message without responding. "I'd like to hear more about your foundation's vision," she told Theo, walking toward her future, and away from the threads that no longer held her. Restoration Work New York in autumn greeted Nora with familiar energy, the hurried pace of pedestrians, yellow taxis weaving through traffic, and the comforting anonymity of being one among millions. But she returned changed, carrying Istanbul's lessons within her. The Nakamura Foundation occupied 3 floors of a renovated building in Chelsea. Nora's office featured large windows and specialized lighting for examining delicate textiles. Her team included conservators from diverse backgrounds, all drawn by the Foundation's innovative approach to preservation and accessibility. "Traditional museums protect artifacts behind glass," Theo explained during her first week. "We want to document them so thoroughly with advanced imaging that people worldwide can study every thread while still preserving the originals." Their flagship project, digitizing endangered textile traditions from communities affected by climate change, consumed Nora's first months. She traveled to coastal villages in Bangladesh, mountain communities in Peru, and remote islands in the Pacific, working with local artisans to record techniques at risk of disappearing between trips. She and Theo developed a comfortable rhythm. Work conversations evolved into dinners discussing art philosophy, weekend visits to obscure museums, and long walks through the city. Unlike Julian's performative affection, always positioned for optimal public visibility, Theo's attention remained consistent, whether they were alone or in company. "You never asked why I left my previous relationship," Nora mentioned one evening as they walked through Washington Square Park. "I figured you'd share if you wanted to," Theo replied, hands in his pockets. "Some stories need time." So she told him about gradually becoming invisible in her own relationship, and about Julian's cutting dismissal of her as too plain for his ascending status. Theo listened without interruption, his expression thoughtful. When she finished, he said simply, he mistook subtlety for absence. 6 months into her new position, Nora received an invitation to the Metropolitan Museum's annual Gala, the event that brought together the art world's most influential figures. The Foundation had become a major sponsor under Theo's direction, focusing specifically on textile arts preservation. "You should attend," Theo encouraged. "The Met's textile department has been implementing some of your digital preservation methods." "Well, you'd be there?" she asked. "I typically avoid these events," he admitted, "but I'll make an exception this time." The evening before the gala, Nora discovered that Julian would be attending with Vanessa. His design house was dressing several celebrities, a crucial opportunity for visibility after his recent professional setbacks. According to industry gossip, his last 2 collections had underperformed, and investors were growing concerned. As she prepared for the gala, Nora chose a gown that reflected her evolution, a midnight blue silk, with subtle Ottoman-inspired embroidery she had designed herself, incorporating techniques from the artisans she'd worked with. She wore a single piece of jewelry, a pendant containing threads from 4 centuries, encased in crystal. A gift from Theo when she completed her first major project. When Theo arrived to escort her, his appreciative gaze held no demands or expectations. "You look like yourself," he said simply. "That's always been enough." The Metropolitan Museum glowed with candlelight as they arrived. Art world luminaries mingled with celebrities and wealthy patrons beneath the soaring ceilings of the Great Hall. Nora moved through the crowd with newfound ease, discussing her work with curators and conservators who knew her by reputation. "Your imaging technique for degraded silk has changed our approach entirely," the Met's head of conservation told her, genuine respect in her voice. Across the room, Julian held court with Vanessa and several fashion editors, his laugh carried too loudly. His gestures slightly too expansive, signs of strain Nora recognized from their final months together. Midway through the evening, the museum director clinked a glass for attention. "Tonight, we're pleased to announce a groundbreaking initiative in textile conservation. It's made possible by the Nakamura Foundation and spearheaded by Nora Haddad." Applause filled the hall as Nora stepped forward. The corner of her eye, she saw Julian's expression shift from confusion to disbelief as he registered her presence and the respect she commanded. "Our goal is preservation through innovation," she stated confidently to the assembled guests, ensuring these cultural treasures remain accessible not just to those who can visit museums, but to communities worldwide. After her brief speech, Theo squeezed her hand gently. "Perfectly said." As they circulated afterward, Julian maneuvered himself into their path, Vanessa trailing behind him. "Nora," he said, his tone suggesting casual surprise. "I hardly recognized you." But Nora hadn't changed her appearance dramatically. She'd simply stopped diminishing herself to accommodate his ego. "Julian," she acknowledged with poised neutrality. "This is Theo Nakamura." Recognition flickered in Julian's eyes as he registered the name. The tech billionaire. "I didn't realize you two were ... partners," Theo completed simply. "In several senses of the word." Vanessa tugged at Julian's sleeve. "Darling, the Vogue editor is looking for you. Something about the cover shoot being reconsidered?" Alarm flashed across Julian's face. "Excuse us," he murmured, already turning away. "Later." As Nora and Theo stood on the museum steps waiting for their car, she reflected on the encounter. "He seemed ... unhappy," Theo finished. "Success built on appearances rarely sustains itself." Nora nodded, thinking about the Foundation's work ahead, the communities they were helping, and the quiet certainty she now carried. The threads of her life had unraveled only to be rewoven into something far stronger and more beautiful than she could have imagined. "Ready to go home?" Theo asked home. Not his apartment or hers, but the shared space they had gradually created together, filled with books, textiles from their travels, and the comfortable silence of mutual understanding. "Yes," she said, "I'm ready." The exhibition 1 year after the Met Gala, Nora stood in the center of the Foundation's gallery space, surveying the installation in progress. Threads of Resilience would be her most ambitious exhibition yet, featuring textiles from 15 communities affected by climate change, paired with digital recreations and contemporary art inspired by traditional techniques. "The lighting needs adjustment on the Maldivian pieces," she noted to her assistant Priya. "The indigo variations aren't quite visible." What had begun as a preservation project had evolved into something more profound, a global initiative that provided economic opportunities to artisan communities while documenting their endangered cultural heritage. The exhibition would tour internationally after its New York debut, with parallel virtual installations making it accessible worldwide. Theo appeared beside her, returning from a meeting with their technology team.
The augmented reality components
Are finally working properly. Visitors can see the original landscape that inspired each textile tradition. Their professional partnership had flourished alongside their personal one. Theo's technological vision complemented Nora's historical expertise, creating innovations neither could have achieved alone. They moved through the world as equals, his wealth and influence, balanced by her specialized knowledge and growing reputation. 3 days before the exhibition opening, Nora received an unexpected email from Ayla Kerman, her former director. In Istanbul, Julian Reeves has been appointed creative director at Levantin Luxury Group. Their headquarters are in Istanbul now. Thought you should know. The news was surprising. Levantin was known for incorporating traditional Middle Eastern textile techniques into contemporary fashion, precisely the cultural intersection Nora had immersed herself in. According to industry news, Julian's previous position had ended after his last collection received critical disappointment. "Everything all right?" Theo asked, noticing her expression. "Julian has taken a position with Levantin. They're based in Istanbul." Theo considered this. "Does that change anything for you?" The question was genuine, not probing or insecure, but simply checking if she needed to process this development. "No," she replied truthfully. "It's just unexpected. It's exhibition." Opening drew international attention. Art critics mingled with fashion designers, tech innovators, and representatives from the featured communities. Nora wore a jacket she had co-created with a Bangladeshi weaver, its subtle patterns revealing different designs under various lighting. Midway through the evening, as she explained a particularly complex weaving technique to a museum curator, she felt a familiar presence before she saw him. "The craftsmanship is extraordinary," Julian said, appearing beside them. "The integration of traditional methods with contemporary design is inspired." The curator excused herself, leaving them alone beside a display of Peruvian textiles.
Hey.
"Didn't expect to see you here," Nora said evenly. Julian looked different than her, with subtle signs of strain around his eyes. "I'm researching for my new position. Levantine wants authenticity in their references to traditional techniques." "Authenticity?" Nora repeated, the irony not lost on her. "I deserved that," he acknowledged, surprising her. "My new role involves working directly with artisan communities. Your expertise in this area is well known. Is this a professional inquiry, then?" Partly he hesitated. "I also owed you an apology. I've had time to reconsider many things," before she could respond. Theo approached with one of the Bangladeshi weavers, whose work featured prominently in the exhibition. "Nora Rashida has some fascinating insights about the indigo dyeing process that might enhance our documentation," Theo said. Then noticed Julian. "I'm sorry, am I interrupting?" "Not at all," Nora replied. "Julian Reeves, this is Theo Nakamura, and this is Rashida Begum, whose family has been weaving for 7 generations." Julian extended his hand to both. "Mr. Nakamura, your foundation's work is impressive. And Ms. Begum, I would be honored to learn more about your techniques." Excused himself to assist with a technical issue, leaving Nora with Julian and Rashida. As the weaver explained her family's unique dyeing process, Nora observed Julian listening with genuine interest. Marked change from the man who had once dismissed her professional passion as boring. Later, as the event wound down, Julian approached her again. "Your partner seems like a good man," he said, watching Theo across the room as he helped gallery staff adjust lighting. "He is," Nora confirmed. "He sees people, really sees them." Julian nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to understand. What that means? My new position has been ... humbling. These artisans possess knowledge I never valued before." "Growth often comes from unexpected directions," Nora offered, finding herself free of resentment. "Vanessa and I separated," he added. "She found someone more prominent." Nora felt a flicker of sympathy. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Julian." "I think I'm still figuring out what that is." He handed her a business card. "If the foundation ever expands its work to include fashion applications of these techniques, I'd welcome the chance to collaborate." As he walked away, Nora realized she felt no lingering attachment, not even the satisfaction of vindication. Julian was simply a person from her past who had unwittingly set her on a path to discovering her own strength. That night, as she and Theo walked home through the crisp autumn air, she told him about Julian's proposal for potential collaboration. "What do you think?" she asked. "Professionally, it could extend the impact of the artisan's work," Theo answered thoughtfully. "Personally, that's entirely your decision." Nora considered the exhibition they had just unveiled, the culmination of work that honored the invisible threads connecting communities across time and space. Work that recognized beauty and value in what others overlooked. "I'll think about it," she said, taking Theo's hand. "There's something powerful about completing a circle." Theo smiled. "You always see the patterns others miss." As they reached their apartment, Nora paused to look up at the night sky, barely visible between city buildings. The contrast reminded her of textiles, the visible patterns supported by unseen structural threads, each essential to the whole. "Thank you," she said suddenly. "For what?" "For seeing me when I was still learning to see myself." Theo's expression softened. "That was never difficult. You've always been extraordinary. Some people just don't have the patience to look closely enough." She leaned against him, thinking of how differently life had unfolded from what she had once imagined. Not a dramatic transformation or public vindication, but a quiet blossoming into her fullest self, visible to those who took the time to truly see. Woven anew 2 years after the Threads of Resilience exhibition, Nora stood on a hillside in the Atlas Mountains of Morocco, watching the sunset paint the landscape in shades of amber and rose. Nearby, Theo documented a master weaver demonstrating a dyeing technique that had nearly disappeared during the climate migration of the previous decade. The Nakamura Foundation's Textile Heritage Initiative had expanded to 27 countries, creating sustainable economies around traditional crafts while preserving techniques that might otherwise vanish. Their digital archive now served as a resource for conservators, designers, and communities seeking to reclaim lost traditions. Their personal life had evolved with the same thoughtful intention as their professional one. 6 months earlier, they had married in a small ceremony in Istanbul where they first met. Ala Karaman had hosted the celebration at the Textile Museum, surrounded by the very pieces that had brought them together. "I have something to show you," Theo said, joining her on the hillside. The imaging technology captured something unexpected in the Berber wedding blanket. On his tablet, he displayed a microscopic view of threads that appeared ordinary to the naked eye. Under magnification, they revealed minute variations in spinning technique that created almost imperceptible patterns visible only to the most discerning observer. The artisan says these hidden patterns were traditionally included as protection for the marriage, he explained. Beauty visible only to those who look closely enough. Nora smiled at the metaphor. "We should head back. We're meeting with the Levantin design team tomorrow morning." The collaboration with Julian's fashion house had developed cautiously at first. After extensive discussion, the foundation had agreed to a limited partnership. Levantin would employ artisans from vulnerable communities, providing fair wages and recognition while incorporating traditional techniques into contemporary designs. Julian had proven surprisingly committed to the ethical framework Nora established. His creative direction had shifted from chasing trends to highlighting the craftsmanship of overlooked traditions. The latest collection had received critical acclaim precisely because of its authenticity and depth, qualities Julian had once dismissed. Their professional relationship remained courteous but distant. Julian never referenced their personal history during business interactions, though occasionally Nora caught him observing her and Theo with a thoughtful expression. The next morning, the foundation team met with Levantine representatives at a renovated riad in Marrakesh. Sunlight filtered through latticed windows as they reviewed progress on the collaboration. "The documentation of the dyeing process has been invaluable," Julian's assistant reported. "We've adjusted our production methods to better honor the traditional techniques." As the meeting concluded, Julian asked to speak with Nora privately. They moved to a small courtyard, where a fountain created soothing background music. "I wanted to let you know personally," he began. "I'm stepping down from Levantine at the end of the year." "Oh, I thought the collaboration was going well." "It is," he assured her. "But I'm starting something smaller. A studio that works directly with artisan communities, focused on education rather than production, teaching rather than taking." Nora studied him with genuine curiosity. "That's quite a departure from your former ambitions." "Working with these communities has changed my perspective," he admitted. "I've learned that what endures isn't what shines brightest initially, but what contains depth and authenticity." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. "I'm getting married," he added, "to someone I met through this project. She's an anthropologist studying textile traditions." "Congratulations, Julian. I hope you'll be happy." "I'm learning what that actually means," he said with surprising vulnerability. "It's not what I thought it was when we were together." As they rejoined the others, Theo approached with an ancient textile fragment recently discovered in a remote village. His excitement over the find was characteristic genuine enthusiasm, untainted by any need to impress or perform. "The dating suggests it's from a previously undocumented tradition," he explained to anyone who would listen. Nora's analysis of the fiber structure has been crucial in identifying its origins. Julian watched their interaction with a complicated expression before excusing himself to take a call. That evening, as Nora and Theo prepared for dinner with local artisans, she recounted her conversation with Julian. "He seems to have found his way to something authentic," she concluded. "Most people eventually do," Theo reflected. "If they're fortunate." The restaurant was nestled in the old Medina, its walls adorned with textiles representing centuries of Moroccan craftsmanship. As they waited for their guests, Nora noticed a young woman across the room examining a particularly intricate wall hanging with expert attention. "That's Farida Ben Ali," Theo identified her. "Anthropologist Julian is engaged too." Nora observed the woman's focused concentration. The way her fingers hovered near the textile without touching it, the gesture of someone who understood its value. When the artisans arrived, dinner became a lively exchange of ideas and stories. Farida joined their table, her knowledge of local traditions impressive. Watching her interact with Julian, who arrived later, Nora recognized something familiar: the attentiveness they showed each other, the mutual respect. "Your foundation's work is remarkable," Farida told them earnestly, "changing how these traditions are valued, both culturally and economically." "That's largely Nora's vision," Theo acknowledged. "I just provided the resources to scale it." Julian's gaze shifted between them. "You've built something meaningful together," he observed. "Both the foundation and ... he gestured vaguely between them. "Yes," Nora agreed simply. "We have." Later, walking back to their hotel through narrow, starlit streets, Theo asked how. "Does it feel?" Seeing him with someone who seems well-suited to who he's becoming? Nora considered the question, firming in a way. "Not because I needed validation, but because it suggests people can grow into better versions of themselves." "Some people," Theo amended with a smile. "The ones willing to look beyond surfaces," she agreed. At their hotel, a package awaited them, a wedding gift from Julian and Farida. Inside was a small framed textile fragment, beautifully preserved. The accompanying note read, "This piece demonstrates a technique called hidden weaving. The pattern reveals itself fully only when held to the light. A reminder that true value often requires the right perspective to be seen. With gratitude for showing me how to look more carefully, Jay." Nora held the piece up to the lamplight, where, indeed, previously invisible patterns emerged, intricate and intentional, created by an artist who embedded beauty in places only the attentive would discover. "Perfect metaphor," Theo observed. "For what?" "For what most people miss when they're dazzled by surfaces. For what I saw in you immediately. For what Julian failed to see until it was too late." Nora placed the textile on their windowsill, where morning light would illuminate its hidden patterns. "I was never invisible," she realized aloud, "just waiting to be seen properly." Theo took her hand, his touch familiar and grounding. "And now you help others see what might otherwise be lost, the beauty in traditions overlooked, in communities forgotten, in patterns nearly erased." Outside their window, Marrakesh continued its nighttime symphony, distant music. Voices in various languages, the rhythm of a city where ancient traditions coexisted with contemporary life. Like the textile on their windowsill, its deepest beauty revealed itself layer by layer to those patient enough to look beyond the obvious. Nora leaned against Theo, thinking of the journey that had brought her here, not just geographically, but to this version of herself, not transformed into someone else, but fully embodied as who she had always been. "What's next?" Theo asked, the question open-ended. Nora smiled. "We keep looking closely, keep finding what others miss. We keep weaving new patterns from old threads." It was enough, more than enough. It was everything.